Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14, and featuring that college football revamp as well. And we are here at this halfway point in the season. We're starting to get into that second half of the season. Many teams have played 6, sometimes 7 games here in this early going of the season. You know, we got some intriguing storylines, so we're definitely going to follow who is a real team, who is simply a pretender that will fade in the second half of the season, and of course, so much more. We got 16 nationally televised games coming your way in this episode, plus some studio updates thrown in there as well as your notable box scores. You already know what time it is. It's going to be a fun one that I hope you guys go out and enjoy. And if you are ready to enjoy this episode, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, then also smack that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand spanking new as well. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump onto these football fields around the country. Let's go. So with that said, our very first game of week number 8 takes us out to San Antonio, Texas, taking us out to the Alamo Bowl, where UTSA will be taking on the Longhorns of Texas, who, after starting off as a preseason number 5, top 10 ranked team in the country, they are doing what they can to avoid going under 500, but UTSA will not make it easy. They're trying to say that this is our year to take the Big 12. And that is such a message to send on the very first drive of the game. UTSA is going to get a touchdown, but they missed the extra point, so they're only going to be up 6-0 before Jason Adams throws this beautiful of a dime to the corner of the end zone. Just an absolutely ridiculous throw with beautiful touch on that throw. So we could be in for a possible shootout on our hands if this could go ahead and keep up. 3rd and inches for the UTSA Roadrunners as they'll go to the outside with their tailback. And their tailback is going to get in practically untouched. That is a touchdown for the Roadrunners yet again. And UTSA will retake the lead. Second quarter could be just as exciting though, as Texas finds itself down by 6 points. But in the opening moments of the second quarter, we do see Texas in that red zone yet again. And Jason Adams will just complete it himself, breaks the tackle, and finds his way into the end zone. A touchdown for the Longhorns. And after a successful extra point, Texas will retake the lead. And after UTSA could not respond back, Texas could go ahead and extend that lead even further if they play their cards right. 2nd and goal from inside the 5-yard line. They're going to try the option play again. And that has been very effective down here by the goal line for the Texas Longhorns, as we'll see them score yet another touchdown before UTSA settles for a field goal. So UTSA still staying in it, but we know this Longhorn offense can be dangerous, albeit inconsistent. However, you see the bright side of the Texas offense. Omar Jackson beating everybody deep. And now he's inside the 10-yard line. Jason Adams just having an absolutely brilliant first half. He has not had a single incompletion yet. And that is not going to start now. Touchdown, Texas. And Jason Adams has over 200 yards in his first half. However, UTSA is going to continue to fight through this game. They're looking to get themselves a 5-2. And a win against Texas could really benefit them in that Big 12 Conference Championship hunt. One that does hold a possible automatic bid to the college football playoff as well. But while UTSA, they know how to put points up on the board, and that's evident by another rushing touchdown for their quarterback, Delane Nelson. They got to find a way to get some stops eventually, right? Like, you got to stop, at least hold them to a field goal. Like, I'm not even asking you to force punts at this point or like get a turnover. Hold them to a field goal. And yet here we are, barbecues on the titties, and UTSA can't do that. They simply cannot really do that, at least not very effectively. So UTSA, they're down by 15 going into the final corner. This touchdown to Craig Sayer, though, is going to be very interesting They're going to go for 2 right away. They need the 2-point conversion. And surprisingly, they're going to get it. So UTSA only down by 7 points. Texas did punt the football away. And now we'll see what this UTSA squad can do as he's staying on his feet. And Joe Cock is going to get a 50 burger down the sideline, as that will make Dwayne Nelson the first quarterback in UTSA history with more than 400 yards passing in a single game. So congratulations to Dwayne Nelson, but he sure is not focused on that yet. He wants to focus on trying to pull this big win off for the Roadrunner program. And it seems like he's in a prime position to do so, as a handoff up the gut to Brian Kerr is going to find the end zone. Touchdown UTSA. And we're going to have a tie game that's going to take us into overtime. So, who wants it more in this overtime in the Alamo City? We'll see who wants it more, as Texas is going to start with the ball to begin the overtime period. The first overtime period, no foreshadowing or anything, as Jason Adams will look over to the left-hand side and finds an open man in Tenard Harris for the touchdown. So now UTSA, their offense, when they go out onto the field, they will need a touchdown of their own. Otherwise, this game is over. Nelson drops back and throws over the middle and finds his receiver to put the Roadrunners into a goal line situation. One that they should convert on here in a 3rd and goal, as, man, Brian Kerr had to earn that touchdown for sure. We will now have a second overtime. Dwayne Nelson has been throwing the ball extremely well today. He's going to want it all on the second overtime. One-on-one matchup. And his receiver cannot win the one-on-one matchup. Why he's not going down, I'm absolutely not sure. And so all Texas needs to do is just put the ball through the uprights. And you'll come out as a winner and escape San Antonio. But why do I have a feeling that they want more than that? 1st and goal. Inside the 10-yard line. It's Jason Adams who breaks the tackle, and that's going to seal it. Texas is going to win a thriller in San Antonio, one that has 110 points combined between these two teams. An absolute classic to start this episode, but Texas barely escapes with a 6-point win. So there'll be more where that come from, I'm sure. But let's check out some studio updates real quick. Washington is going to remain in the top 25, at least for right now. They get to 4-2 on the season after a narrow win against the Wolfpack of Nevada. Nevada now falling to 3-5 here on the year. So now we got a couple of games getting ready to happen for us here, as Ohio State is going to, go and be busy with it, taking on the Michigan State Wolverines. We'll also see Appalachian State play Charlotte, a little bit of rivalry game action here as well. Now, Ohio State is coming off of, frankly, one of the most embarrassing losses in program history, losing to an undervalued Miami Redhawks team. Not the Miami Hurricanes, but the Miami Redhawks. That's who they just went ahead and lost to, right? Very embarrassing stuff. So we'll see if Ohio State can get it going. And early on, a struggle bus trip for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Here in the second quarter, they still have not scored, but after Brooks Hicks has a time to prepare a 4-course meal for himself, he will eventually find Michael Charles in the end zone for a touchdown. So Ohio State does break the scoring drought. We'll see if they can open up the dam at this point, just so that they can save a little bit of face after what happened in the last episode. So here we go. 1st and goal, as Ohio State will try to punch it in, and they will. That is number 12's first career rushing touchdown. I lost track of his name. His name is escaping me, but I do know that is his first career touchdown. So congratulations to that young kid, making those dreams come true, scoring a touchdown in a college football game. As now, 4th quarter is coming up, gonna run over to the right-hand side, and Jonathan Sherman almost, and I mean almost, ends up finding the end zone there. We'll see if they give it back to him, and they do. Rewarding Jonathan Sherman, your tailback, as Ohio State, while it wasn't a beautiful day offensively, it was a complete game. Michigan State did end up getting shut out, as the Spartans still look for their second win of the year. So, that being said, we now jump into the rivalry game between the Charlotte 49ers and the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. Now, Appalachian State has played spoiler in the past, as Appalachian State just last year actually beat Charlotte at home. So we'll see if Appalachian State could be that spoiler yet again. However, Charlotte, with a minute left here in this first half, is looking to start pulling away, and it's important that Appalachian State stops them on this particular drive, because Charlotte also gets the ball to start the second half, and Charlotte's trying to prove that they're a top 25 team as well. 4-1, so a strong start for the 49ers, and yet it can't get them ranked in the top 25. It's a crazy world that we are absolutely living in right now. I remember when Charlotte was ranked in the top 25, I think just a couple of seasons ago. So this is a good program here in Charlotte, North Carolina, one that will find the end zone yet again. So not a great game for the Appalachian State Mountaineers, as they're going to try to crawl out of this deficit that they created for themselves here in this second half. But lo and behold, late in the third quarter, that's exactly what they do. Zach Miller is going to find the end zone for the Mountaineers, and all of a sudden, Appalachian State is back in this game. They are truly back in this game, but that is as close as they're going to get, as a couple of field goals by the Charlotte 49ers is going to seal it. Charlotte ends up winning 29-17 in this rivalry game action. But let's go ahead and turn our attention over to the West Coast, as not only will we check in on number 15 Utah, who is rightfully getting some attention that it deserves, but also this BYU team that's 4-1, trying to prove that they're also a top 25 caliber team, and they're trying to keep up with Utah, as they want to make sure that they're at least tied with the Utes when they have that Holy War game towards the end of the season. So it's very imperative that BYU handles its business against a below average Arizona team. However, Arizona is not going to make that easy. Arizona has been blown out a couple of times already this season, but that doesn't mean that they're made up of a bunch of quitters. These guys can play hard, and BYU is finding it out the hard way, still tied at 7, but a big throw to the outside to Brent McKinney is going to find the end zone. Touchdown, Cougars! And BYU will take the lead with about 90 seconds left to play here in this first half. However, is that too much time for Arizona, who still has all of its timeouts to use? They have 2 timeouts remaining, as their quarterback will drop back, looks over to the left-hand side, dumps it off, and hang on now, he's got a little bit of space down the sideline. Tom Hallmiller will pick up 20 off of that catch, off of just a dump-off play. Crazy stuff. But Arizona is in BYU territory, and on a couple plays later, finds Jared Utley for the response. So it's going to be all knotted up at 14 apiece. Now, Matt King is trying to prove that it's the king of his domain here in Provo, Utah. However, that's not how you want to prove that at all. John Johnson not only forcing the third interception of this first half for BYU, going to turn that into a pick 6. And so that will give Arizona the lead going into halftime. And we might have a little bit of an upset alert on our hands, ones that I'm sure Utah fans are actively rooting for. Arizona is going to punch into the end zone yet again, and it's 35-17, and Arizona will ride that off into the sunset, as Arizona actually wins big there. So that gives Utah a chance to create some breathing room here out in the, I believe it is the either the Mountain Division or the Desert Division. I'm not 100% sure. Pretty sure it's the Mountain Division, but hey, you know what? Screw it, we ball. Utah has a chance to score first against Boise State. Boise State, who is having a little bit of a down season, and Utah will act accordingly. They'll score first here at the start of the first quarter. Then they'll even tack on to a field goal as well, so a strong start for the Utes. who will take a 10-0 lead into the second quarter of action. And as this game progresses here in the first half, it almost seems like Utah is poised to run Boise State off the field, as Utah has, well, yet another red zone opportunity. Can they turn that into yet another red zone touchdown? Only time will tell, but a 2nd and 5, as they're just going to continue to pound the rock. This is a big-time run, a couple of runs actually, to force Boise State to give up yet another touchdown. Utah is quickly up 24-0, and while Boise State will eventually score here in this first half of action, it's not looking good for the Broncos. However, the Broncos will at least attempt a 2-point conversion, and hey, they get the 2-point conversion, so all the credit in the world to them. So only a 2-possession game at the very least. Certainly a doable comeback if they want to try and accomplish just that. But Utah is just a good football team, man, and Utah runs away with it in the second half. They win 55-15. So the Utes will remain undefeated. But now we head over to the country roads in Morgantown, as they will be hosting their own conference opponent in the Cardinals of Louisville, who are, doing a little bit better now that they have a new head coach. This would be a big win for Louisville if they're able to pull this off and thwart West Virginia from entering that top 25, because somehow, even though West Virginia is 6-1, they have a win against Notre Dame, they have not been able to crack the top 25. I simply do not understand. It's like what we saw historically from West Virginia back when they were ranked in the top 25 and they were a dumpster fire. Well, that being said, I'm a little bit lost and confused why they're being left out, but West Virginia can prove themselves here, as Taylor Steffens, the FCS transfer, will find Jake Sanders in the end zone, and they will at least tie it up. But late in the second quarter, West Virginia carrying a 14-7 lead. Quarterback's going to load up and fire down the left-hand side. One in a one-on-one matchup, and his guy is going to lose badly, as this DB, he's still on his feet, finally gets dragged down, but not before reaching midfield. William Garcia will try to set West Virginia up for a field goal. And sure enough, after a couple of first downs, they do get into comfortable field goal range. West Virginia carries a 17-7 lead to the half. On to the second half, though. Louisville looking to claw their way back into the game as they try to swoop victory in from the jaws of defeat. However, it seems that Taylor Steffens is not trying to have any of that as we enter that final quarter of action already, as they have a goal line situation to work through to try and put Louisville away. And while it may not be guaranteed, that is certainly going to help. Gary Wheeler will find the end zone, and that is a touchdown for your Mountaineers. However, they end up failing to hit the extra points, so it's only a 9-point differential. So if they can score and get the onside kick, they would just need either a touchdown or a field goal, depending on what they do here. But instead, they are going to fumble the ball, and this game is going to be over unless this guy that has the ball right now recovers it. But while he's brought down inside the 10-yard line, he does not let go of that ball, and West Virginia is going to win. The country roads prevail, winning 23-14 in this one. So that being said, we get some more studio updates around the country, as how about Hawaii winning 31-20 to remain undefeated? They'll have a big test against USC next week, but for now, let's go take a trip down south to check out some of these other teams that are ranked or have been ranked in the past. At first, we have Georgia taking on their rival in Tennessee. The Volunteers having a disappointing season so far, but could right the ship if they can find a way to take down number 3 Georgia, as Elliott Hartman is looking to make sure that does not happen. You cannot take an L, especially in the confines of Sanford Stadium, as Elliott Hartman will indeed find the end zone, and that is a touchdown for your Georgia Bulldogs. So Georgia has a 10-0 lead already, but Tennessee looking to punch it in down by the goal line. Actually almost gets stuffed at the 1-yard line, but Sam Graves does a good job bringing a tackle there. So Tennessee finally gets on the board, but they fail to get the extra points. So Georgia is going to still be up by 7 points, even though they still allowed a touchdown on that previous drive. We'll see what Frederick Moore can do in the final 2 minutes of this first half. He's got a clean pocket to work through, and he's going to find his receiver. That is, I believe, Antonio Paris, who's able to get open and create a few extra yards after the catch. Georgia is now deep in Tennessee territory. Very next play, Moore is going to deliver a ball deep downfield and finds Robert London for a 35-yard gain. And Frederick Moore is just making it look easy, as it will lead to an easy touchdown. Georgia improves their lead going into the halftime locker room. And if Tennessee is going to want to come back and win this thing, they are going to need their offense to actually show up. But I don't think their offense left Knoxville, Tennessee, because 9 points it's a tough look. I know Georgia's got a good defense. I don't know if I would call it a great defense. Jake Jacobs may be a benefactor of all of the talent that's on this roster. But Georgia up 27-9. Well, if we're going to extend that lead further, Todd Neely is going to score, and well, the rest is history after that. Georgia wins convincingly 41-16 in this rivalry game. In terms of keeping it down south, though, how about UL Monroe? UL Monroe is coming off of a big-time win themselves. They just beat TCU in simulation, and we had the opportunity to show that as a studio update. But now we'll see if they can get some 2 big wins in a row, as they will take on the Crimson Tide of Alabama, this time being in actual gameplay. This is not a simulation. And Alabama finds itself down 7-0. And, you know, you worry about Alabama sometimes in these types of games, especially if they start slow, because Alabama is not the most explosive offense. You know, we've seen them win games in gameplay, but not necessarily when it's fun, if you're catching my drift. Like the Alabama-South Alabama game in the last episode is a perfect example of that. Alabama won, but they only scored like 16 points. So their defense is going to have to be close to perfect, it almost feels like, just for Alabama to beat UL Monroe. And unfortunately, the defense has not been perfect thus far, as the Warhawks, well, they'll score 2 touchdowns, and they're going to do that in the first quarter. That's already more than what South Alabama was able to accomplish. So the Warhawks coming in to Tuscaloosa, this is not an easy environment to win in, by the way, and they're hanging with them. They came to play some good ball, just hoping for a team in the Sun Belt or in the Big 12 to go winless so that they can be invited to a conference finally, to try to maintain that that geographical the geographical landscape of the NCSL college football world. But hey, look at Alabama, though. Alabama actually learned how to score points. I'm so proud of these guys. Alabama actually puts up at least a 30-burger as they beat ULM 35-20. Alabama's going to be 4-2. Not a shabby season at all. But now let's see what's going on with the team that ULM just beat last week, as we get a chance to watch them in gameplay. TCU coming off their first loss of the year, and it almost kicks them outside of the top 25 completely. Well, they're taking on Baylor in this crucial Big 12 conference matchup. TCU, of course, offensively is doing better than what they were doing this time last year. Of course, that would be the case literally the year after Jake Jacobs leaves to take the defensive coordinator job at Georgia. Of course, that would be a thing, because there were some games where Jake Jacobs had some good performances defensively, and his team would still lose. It was a frustrating 2-year tenure at TCU, one where TCU could have been in a conference championship game last year, but they literally blew it in the final moments of the regular season. Looking to avoid that the second time around, though, as TCU putting points up on the board this time around. Paul Rawls, quarterback for the TCU Horned Frogs, he's not too bad. He's doing some pretty good work against his Baylor secondary. He's looking to continue that here in the second half, as Paul Rawls is going to slide down for a gain of 5, avoids the big hit. It's a pretty smart quarterback there under center for this TCU squad, and so it sets up a easier 2nd and 5 while still holding on to that ball simultaneously for Terrence Williamson, who will easily pick up the first down. And now they only need 1 yard to pick up the sticks, and they will by throwing the ball surprisingly. It works. It actually did work, and TCU, well, listen, they only won by 9, but it was not as close as what that score said. So we now get a chance to get yet another studio update, and the Florida Gators will remain in the top 25 for right now. Florida wins 30-24 as FAU falls back to 500 on the year. So with that being said, a couple of more games coming in your direction. We got Miami, who's looking to be poised to control its own destiny in the Sunshine Division, trying to go to that SEC championship game. And then Wisconsin has came out of nowhere. They've been ranked in the top 25 since they beat Ohio State back in, I believe it was week number 6. Although there is a little bit of controversy with their week 7 game. The Iowa game that they were supposed to play in was supposed to be, actually shown in gameplay, not simulated. So did Wisconsin possibly dodge the bullet? And it makes you wonder, because they're struggling against a Missouri team that I don't think is actually as good as Iowa. Granted, Missouri has been able to look good in their game against Kansas in the border war, so maybe adding a little bit more confidence before this critical interconference matchup, as Wisconsin is just simply trying its best to tie this game up. And not only will they tie it up, but they will likely take the lead as well. Wisconsin with a 14-13 lead, and now we're starting to see why Wisconsin is ranked in that top 25. This is not your daddy's Wisconsin team at all. These boys can actually move the football pretty effectively downfield, and they're also running no huddle. This is not Big Ten West football at all. What a heartbreak for the old school fans and for the Sickos committee. They're running a confident offense, but oh, they caught that. He actually caught that. I actually thought that was intercepted, but Travis Green somehow comes down with that. I don't know how that's possible, but hey, that's college football. You should always expect the unexpected. We'll see if Mark Silva can punch it into the end zone here. Dumps it off, breaks a tackle, and Daryl Miller is going to pick up another first down yet again, as Wisconsin now in a goal line situation is going to fake the fullback dive, and Daryl Miller gets to the outside, finds the end zone. Touchdown, Wisconsin. So the Badgers will take a 21-13 lead, but 15 seconds left in the half. Missouri is still trying to be aggressive here, but throws it up in the triple coverage. I mean, why? Why would you do that? Why would you honestly do that? That is a terrible sight to see. See, if you're a quarterback watching this, you never throw it across your body. That is just a recipe for disaster. And yet, in spite of that, Missouri is still in this game. They're only down by 5 points here going into the final quarter of action. We'll see what Missouri can do. They might take the lead if they're feeling spicy enough. And sure enough, max protection. Fine. No, he does not find his receiver. It's a Wisconsin DB. There's that Missouri quarterback making that same mistake a second time, but off screen, Missouri will eventually score a touchdown. So now the pressure is on Wisconsin all of a sudden to take or at least tie this game up on this particular drive. 2nd and 5 coming up for Mark Silva as he drops back, looks around, fires over to the left-hand side. It's intercepted. Missouri is going to pick it off with 2 minutes left to play in the game. and Missouri will run out the rest of the clock. They will pull the upset off against the number 12 team in America. Meanwhile, can Miami avoid the same fate that we just witnessed Wisconsin have? They're taking on Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech was a very good team last year. I believe Georgia Tech was, I want to say, a 10-win team. So there was some expectations for Georgia Tech to maybe be a little bit more competitive with Georgia, and that just hasn't happened yet. It's been a disappointing year for Georgia Tech, and Miami is not the team that you go up and play against for that get-right game. That's not who you want at all. So Miami, it has a 7-0 lead against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's going to have to give them everything that they can if they want to beat the number 2 team in the nation. However, odd mid Morse is going to drop back, looks over to right inside, has David Burke, but if he cuts it upfield sooner, he would have had a touchdown. Instead, it's going to be 3rd and goal. They're going to run for it here. Ahmed Morris puts the ball on the ground, and it's recovered by the Hurricanes, as the defense will have themselves a goal line stand. That being said, Miami cannot fully take advantage of the fumble recovery, as they'll get a field goal. But I'm sure they were not exactly looking for a field goal necessarily. They probably want a little bit more, but maybe it would help if they get Caleb Kirk going here. Caleb Kirk, haven't called his name much in this particular matchup yet, but trying to get him a little bit more involved, as will they try to get involved more Tyrell Smoochie Wallace. Smoochie Wallace, one of your guys' custom players, been starting since day 1 for the Miami Hurricanes, before Rodney Walker finishes the deal on that particular drive, as Miami will likely take a 17-0 lead into halftime. Coming out of the halftime locker room, as Georgia Tech is still looking to get its very first points on the scoreboard, and they do it! They finally get on that scoreboard after all, as Audman Morse finally makes up for fumbling the ball in the red zone way back in that first quarter of action. But Miami's offense is starting to heat up a little bit. Actually, wasn't a bad first half for Miami offensively, but in the second half, they're certainly trying to build off of that, and sure enough, they will with Sean Campbell, who is going to run it into the end zone. It's a touchdown for the Hurricanes. Meanwhile, 24-7 lead for the Miami Hurricanes, as this Hurricane squad is trying to finish this game out. They do already have a 20-point lead, so we'll see if they decide to kneel down the ball, or it looks like what they're actually trying to do is get some style points here towards the end of this game, and they're going to get them with Caleb Kirk, who was a bell cow on that final drive of the game. 52 yards on that last possession, as Miami beats Georgia Tech convincingly 34-7. Meanwhile, we have more studio updates on the way, as California is starting to heat up a little bit as we get into Pac-12 conference action. They beat Washington State 31-14. While I don't agree with California being in this top 25, they should move up a little bit based on their current logic. Speaking of teams that are in the top 25, Oklahoma is in here, but just barely. They're the number 25 team in the nation, and now they will be hosting Kansas in a non-conference matchup. We'll see what Kansas has in the tank for us, and it is a close game here early in this first quarter of action, but Oklahoma, they went for it on 4th down. They get the first down, and so we have a goal line opportunity waiting on our hands. Oklahoma looking to retake the lead here late in this first quarter of action. Everybody all bunched in like a bag of sardines, and there it is. Jerome Butler finds the end zone, and Oklahoma, after that, looks like they're going to run away with this game too, especially after a throw like that where, you know, it's just one of those things where it's lucky to be good. It's better to be lucky than it is to be good. And Jordan Mitchell, one of your guys' is custom, by the way, seemed like he actually did get a little bit on that lucky side there. Probably could have been intercepted if Kansas actually was a decent defensive unit. But Kansas isn't that, now is they? That's a part of a reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason why they're 1-4 right now. Kansas is simply not good here in this NCSL series, but they are fighting. They are putting up some fight, that's for sure. And this field goal is only going to put them down by 10 points going into this fourth quarter of action. So if Chase Joseph can score here, and he actually does, hold up now, wait a minute. We might actually have ourselves a little bit of a game on our hands. It now becomes critical for Oklahoma to score a touchdown on this drive, and they get it. Another lucky throw by Jordan Mitchell, who gets his second passing touchdown of the night. And so Oklahoma might have just effectively put the nail in the coffin. But why not go ahead and add some more style points as well? Oklahoma inside the 5-yard line. They are not stopping this clock. And Jerome Butler is going to make them pay for it. Touchdown Oklahoma. And the Sooners will prove that they should remain in this top 25, winning 43-24 as your final score. That being said, we now check in on Notre Dame, taking on the Cardinal of Stanford. Now, Notre Dame also one of those teams that was very highly regarded when we first started this season. However, not the same way after their losses to teams like West Virginia, for example. They already had 3 losses, and so a high seed is not in the cards for them. But if they can win this game, they can at least build some momentum before they get back into conference action. A conference title is now the only way that Notre Dame can get into the playoff. That being said, Greg Hunt is not making it too terribly easy. His guys only scoring 7 points here in the first half, and to be honest with you, it was a very boring first half of action, if I want to be real with you guys. So, that being said, Notre Dame still has the lead, but Stanford is still lingering around a little bit. Matt Rouse is certainly not trying to go away, at least not anytime soon. So, here we go. 2nd and 5 coming up as Matt Rouse is going to throw over the middle, and Scott Perry will pick up the first down for the Stanford Cardinal. And just a few more yards and Stanford can take the lead. And sure enough, they will. Scott Perry again makes another catch in this red zone. And the Cardinal are in the lead going into the final quarter. This could be a photo finish. We'll see what Notre Dame can do with one of its first drives of the final quarter of action. 2nd and goal coming up after the Greg Hunt sack. Is going to hand it off to the outside to Ben Bentley, who nearly finds the end zone but can't punch it in. Instead, it's 4th and goal, trying to run it on the speed option, and Ben Bentley gets that outside leverage that he was looking for, and Notre Dame will have the lead. However, last 10 seconds of the game, Stanford is going to hit a last-second field goal. And so, once again, we are going to have some overtime on our hands. So we'll see what happens in this overtime period as Greg Hunt is going to try to get some scores on the board, but being a little bit too risky. That's a big reason why Notre Dame has struggled in this game. You know, they have more total yards than Stanford, but Stanford being +4 in the turnover margin, you know, you simply can't have that. And with that catch by J.P. Braden, they do have the field goal in their back pocket if they wanted to take it, but they don't. Instead, they get to Ron Massey, who was wide but naked open, and that 3rd touchdown pass for Matt Rouse on the night is the ultimate dagger, as Stanford is going to beat up Notre Dame at the end, and it might be full panic mode here in South Bend. So just a few more games left here in this episode. So let's go ahead and not waste any more time. We got a Keystone Pipeline battle to begin the really late night games, the 8 o'clock slate, so to speak. as Pittsburgh will be taking on the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Both of these teams looking to establish themselves in the Union Division of Conference USA. So, big game for both teams for sure. And Penn State taking advantage. They're going to take the lead here early in the second quarter. And we're going to build on that even more so. Penn State dropping back to pass with their quarterbacks. Got some time. And finds Terrence Hines in the end zone. Trent Brown leads them into another scoring opportunity. However, Penn State will not be able to get the extra point for whatever reason. Extra points has been a problem in the NCSL. Something I've been pretty surprised about, because you don't see that when you're actually controlling one of the teams, but when it's the CPU, it's suddenly not as much of an automatic kick as you would think it would be. It's a strange sight to behold, to be honest with you guys, and it allows Pitt to instead be down by 4 points and having to score a touchdown to take the lead. Well, they only need a field goal to just tie things up. So you got all that happening, and Pittsburgh actually does have a chance to take the lead. That's a big time throw down the sideline. And you know what Pittsburgh likes to do? They love their no puddle here in the Steel City. One of the fastest teams in America in full effect. Looking downfield, and it creates an opening for Marcus Coleman to uphold. Touchdown, Panthers. And Pitt is going to make it a 17-13 lead. So the Nittany Lions find themselves down, but they had a chance to take the lead, but Trent Brown just continues to turn this ball over. Like, what are we doing? What are we actually doing right now? Just having these kinds of turnovers in the red zone. You can't have that against a team like Pittsburgh, which is a good football team, by the way. If they had a down season number 3, that was obviously evident, but again, now Pittsburgh is back. These guys can play. They play some good football for sure, as Penn State looking around on a 1st and goal opportunity, punches it in. Penn State pulls to within just 4 points. Can they make the comeback happen? Down by 5. They're going for the 2-point conversion, and it's successful. But Pittsburgh runs out the rest of the clock, and they'll hang on and win this Keystone rivalry. Now, we'll check in on the number 4 team in America, the Michigan Wolverines, and kind of a game that has 2 teams at 2 completely separate spectrums, right? Because Purdue, you could argue, is one of the worst teams in college football here in year number 4, while obviously Michigan is towards that top end, being one of the best teams in college football, as they are undefeated and they're ranked number 5 in the country. We'll see if Michigan does what they're supposed to do and blow the doors off these guys, or are we going to see them play with food a little bit? And it seemed like for a quick second they were actually playing with their food slightly, but second quarter has happened and those concerns are immediately alleviated. That was almost another touchdown for the Michigan Wolverines. They could put up a 30-burger before we go into halftime, and sure enough, they do. A touchdown for the Michigan Wolverines, as that would make it 31-3. And while Purdue did not wholeheartedly give up when this huge deficit was created, at the same time, Purdue just does not have the talent to hang with teams like Michigan, and so you get final scores like this. Which now takes us to our final game of the night. We got West Virginia taking on the number 22 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels, as the Tar Heels are looking to prove that they're a top 25 team, while Virginia Tech, they should be top 25. This should be full game highlights. Instead, you get this little red zone action that you kind of see with NFL Red Zone. Gonna miss football once the Super Bowl is completed tomorrow night, as of when I'm recording this. But that being said, Virginia Tech not showing that they deserve to be in that top 25 right now, but they do at least score there. And after North Carolina punts the football away, Virginia Tech puts together another masterclass drive, and now they are right back in the red zone. They have a chance yet again to tie this ball game up, and it looks like they certainly will. Touchdown, Virginia Tech, and we have a tie ball game here up in Chapel Hill. This could be a battle of the ages. Now, we get to the second half, and I'm showing you special teams. And if you've been around for a while, you know that something always goes down when I show that special teams. And yeah, that's why, baby. A turnover to start the half. Like, you can't have that against a team like North Carolina. A really good football team, by the way. One that possibly could make its way into the college football playoff for sure. But it looks like the style of the game is changing here in the second half. We got a tie ball game at 17 apiece going into the final quarter. But with 7 minutes left to play, Virginia Tech is going to pitch it out to Martin Davis, and he will find the end zone. The Hokies will take the lead, but North Carolina can also respond as well. North Carolina is going to throw over the middle and is going to pick up the first down with 5 minutes left to play. So, that being said, North Carolina, can they fight their way into the end zone? Yes, they can! Touchdown, Justin Mitchell! And they missed the extra point. So, 5 seconds left. North Carolina, they still have a chance to win this thing. The kick is up. It's no good. The field goal is missed. And instead of us going to overtime, instead, Virginia Tech is going to stun North Carolina, and they're likely to fall out of this top 25. But with all the nationally televised games out of the way, let's go ahead and check out some of these other games that might have fallen a little bit under the radar to a degree. With that being said, we start with Ole Miss hosting Texas State, and the Bobcats just simply never had a chance. Demolished by the number 9 team in the nation as Ole Miss wins 42-13. As for USF, they just played their 6th game of the season, and they're in an extremely good spot. They blow out Georgia State here 52-10, as the Bulls are looking very promising in terms of at least making a bowl game here in year number 4. As for Northern Illinois, they continue to plow through their competition as they take down their fellow conference opponent and the Marshall Thundering Herd. The Thundering Herd fall to 2-6 after a 49-26 loss here at home. But one of the biggest shocks that we have seen is that Nebraska, Nebraska is not going to be undefeated no more. Nebraska is going to lose to Central Michigan 24-21. Yikes. Absolute yikes. You hate to see it. Big win for the Chippewas, though. As for the Razorbacks of Arkansas, they are now firing off to a 7-1 record. They beat Southern Alabama 37-24. Arkansas looking like a close lock to make it to the Sun Belt Championship. If they can get one of their next 2 Sun Belt wins, they should be looking pretty on that front. Meanwhile, the Fighting Illini continue to garner respect from the college football world as they take down the just incredible-led Kentucky Wildcats 42-14 in what could be a very key MAC Conference Championship game, especially in the second half of the season. As for the Black Knights of Army, they're looking to get back to the Conference USA Championship as Army ends up beating Maryland 35-9. The Terrapins have only won 1 game this entire season. However, the Iowa Hawkeyes bounce back from their tough loss to Wisconsin last week. They take it out on Eastern Michigan here as the Hawkeyes win 49-14, actually showing that they do have an offense. Meanwhile, the Clemson Tigers prove that, hey, this team still needs to be ranked in the top 25. Even though they have a loss, Clemson beats Old Dominion 56-20, but Clemson is still outside of this top 25. Tough love for the Clemson Tigers. Another team that also should be ranked here soon if they can keep the momentum is the Buffaloes of Colorado. Colorado is now 5-2. They get a big win over Akron here, winning 52-14 and proving to 5-2 here on the season. As for Florida State, they are going to remain in the top 10 for right now as they take down a winless UAB squad. The Blazers fall once again 38-14 as the Blazers are starting to run a runway here to actually win a game here in year number 4. And then, of course, there's the Rice Owls. The Rice Owls are still undefeated. Had a tough test against Texas A&M, but were able to persevere in the second half. The Owls win 35-21 and have reached 6-0 here on the season. So with all these undefeated teams that are still around the country, we actually have a variety of first place votes being provided. USC, Miami, Georgia, Rice, and Hawaii are all garnering first place votes. The only undefeated team right now that is not getting that same love is the Michigan Wolverines. They actually fall 2 spots, and that's even with a convincing win over Purdue, but we'll have at least one less unbeaten after this week with USC and Hawaii going ahead and playing each other in the next episode, so watch out for that. In the meantime, we take a look at some of the other things happening in this top 25. Northern Illinois jumps up to number 11. They're also undefeated, but they're starting to trickle their way up. They're going to have a big game against Notre Dame. They're going to have to prove themselves yet again. As for other movement in the top 25, you got Utah moving up a couple spots after a blowout of Boise State. We also have Illinois up a couple of spots as well. They're up to number 15 in the country. Cal is up 2, Washington is up 2, and these two teams will actually play up against each other. We'll see if Cal can get back to 500 in the next episode. We'll definitely watch that. Florida, if they're up 2 spots, a close win against Florida Atlantic. They're gonna have to play Georgia, though. That's gonna be a tough test for the Gators in a neutral site matchup. Biggest movement here, though, is Nebraska falls 12 spots to 19. A shocking loss to Central Michigan, but we will see them take on Kansas next week, so it should be a bounce-back game. Kansas has struggled tremendously. Rounding out your top 25, though, you got TCU at 21. Wisconsin down 10 spots to number 22 in the country. And coming in for the first time is West Virginia. The Country Roads Mountain Mama is going to finally be a top 25 team. We'll probably see them in gameplay in the next episode, as they'll have the Coal Mines Battle rivalry game between them and Marshall. An older rivalry game, of course. So a fun episode here, as we actually did end up seeing a couple of upsets after all. We thought it was going to be a pretty chalk week, and we were pleasantly wrong. We're going to have some big games here in the next episode, so you're not going to want to miss a singular moment here in this series. It has been absolutely fun to watch this season unfold, and I hope you have that same energy as well. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button for me. Then also hit that subscribe button if you have to be brand new to the channel. This is John J Gaming on the mic signing off. Hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.